executing
He's
people.
a tough guy. Hey, when you take over a country with tough people, and you take it over from your father, if you can do that at 27 years old, that's 1 in 10,000 that could do that.
That deserves a medal. It is Thursday, June 14th, 2018. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week I talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. Today's show, Trump consummates his relationship with Kim Jong Un in the Philippines. That earned him double-authoritarian-experience points. The Trump Organization celebrates by releasing a 4-minute movie trailer, no kidding, on Trump and North Korea. Destiny Pictures, in scare quotes, a.k.a. the National Security Council, presents A Story of Opportunity. You gotta listen to that one. Meanwhile, Trump blows up the G7 and pisses off Canada. The FBI will release the long-awaited report on Hillary's emails later today. Yes, we're still talking about that, right? I can hear Bernie Sanders in my head going, "Enough with the emails!" Trump Organization is drooling in anticipation. Apparently, Trump has towels at the ready. Dab his face. And net neutrality is dead. Say it with me, everybody. Elections have consequences. Good thing, we've got more mergers on the way after a court gave the green light to the AT&T and Time Warner merger. Next up to the plate looks like Comcast, Disney, CVS, and so much more. And it looks like you're safe for now, Amazon. Google. Speaking of Amazon, Bezos' company successfully pressures Seattle's city council to take back a new tax that would have helped with homelessness. Good thing he gives to charity, I guess. And smiles a lot. Cal exit? ? Exclamation point. A plan to split California into 3 separate states made it onto the November ballot as a ballot initiative. For real. Virginia Republicans nominate Corey Stewart for the U.S. Senate. Who is Stewart? Stewart's a guy who's got ties to white nationalists and neo-Nazis who organized a Charlottesville hate fest. You know, Cal exit, neo-Nazis running for office and things. I don't know. One of them's a relationship. Michelle Wolf 1, Sarah Huckabee Sanders 0. Sarah fact burner Huckabee Sanders is reportedly leaving. Well, that's at least according to CBS News. Sanders took to Twitter and said, does CBS News know something I don't? I was at my daughter's kindergarten class. I don't know anything about it. We'll see. And is Michael Cohen getting ready to flip on Trump as he fires his legal team? Seems everybody wants to speculate, but we don't know. We'll see. Today's Pennsylvania focus, Tom Wolf takes John Fetterman out shopping for a tie. He'll need one of them for when he presides over the Senate, Wolf says in the ad. Looks like Fetterman wants to get Wolf out next time to see if he can ink him up. Wolf seems a little scared about that prospect. And Sean met Dave Daley, author of Ratf, in the Pennsylvania Capitol this week. Ratf is the text, the book on what happened in terms of the gerrymandering over the past couple decades. It's a fabulous book. We've talked about on the podcast before. And, Sean got to spend some time with him this week. And Pennsylvania state Republicans, this is why Daley was there, Pennsylvania state Republicans gut gerrymandering reform bill, an add provision to the gerrymander Pennsylvania Supreme Court, the Commonwealth Court, and the Superior Courts. Funny thing is that nobody knew who Dave Daley was. Like, reporters did not know. Right? So, that's funny. Sean, who's that guy with you? Oh, God. In today's last call, Senator Scott Soprano Wagner, Governor Wannabe, got himself some Jimmy John's. Eating it, found and caught eating it in the Capitol out of a boxed lunch. So I don't know where he got that. Out of the mouths of children, probably. That'd be my guess. And NASA head Jim Bridenstine weighs in on the new space policy. And Free Will has got an awesome, awesome weekend lined up for your Father's Day. Uh-huh.
Beer, 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 and more beer.
Exactly. Beer and food truck, and farmers market in there, too. And we got big news here at Raging Chicken Media. We got a new podcast coming out, Free Range. Yours truly from Raging Chicken is teaming up with Colleen Fitzgerald from A Home Stony Run to bring you a new podcast, Free Range. Free Range focuses on food, politics, and communities of resistance, or communities as resistance. What a better way to ground our political organizing than in the very ground we walk upon, the people, the places, the processes of sustenance and resistance. And if you're not familiar with Colleen's work, Colleen Fitzgerald's work, you can find her stuff, or A Home Stony Run, at tracedlines.com. That's tracedlines.com. Each week she writes about local farms, farmers, artisans, artists, and activists. You can also find her recipes. She's an amazing cook. I always say that, like, looking at her Instagram page is like having a meal. You can find all those, her recipes, reflections, photography, all that work that helps to discuss the ways we build communities. You can find her on Instagram at MZCCFitz. That's MZCCFITZ. That's on Instagram. We'll be posting show updates and information all about the project on our Facebook page initially. You just look for Free Range on Facebook. You can go to the show notes and click on that and check it out. And our first episode we recorded yesterday will be posted shortly after today's Out to Coot podcast. I want to remind you to tune in to The Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune in on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. Missed the show? No problem. Just go to freespeech.org and click on The Rick Smith Show in the archives. If we want a progressive future, folks, we need progressive media. And you can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today by becoming a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. If you're not ready to become a member, no problem. You can just go to ragingchickenpress.org, click on that big blue donate button on the right sidebar, and donate any amount you feel like. $2, $10, $50, $1,000 for those of you. Hint, hint. If you think about it, with the 2018 midterm elections right around the corner, we need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. And the best way to do that is to become a member of Raging Chicken Press today by going to patreon.com/rcpress. All right. Well, Sean, man, we've got a lot of stuff on our plate today. It seems like it was nonstop news. I don't know. Yeah, it has been. Where do you think we should start off today?
We should start with some of the good news.
Good news. There's good news.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it's good news.
All right.
Someone in the Trump administration actually has a heart. We found out this week.
Oh, you did not just go there. You did not go there. And who is this scarecrow after Oz?
His name is Larry Kudlow.
God.
Trump's finance director.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
The person who doesn't have a finance degree or an economics degree. He had a talk show on CNBC.
Well, yeah, he's a talk show head. That's
one of the most conservative TV channels out there.
Right, right. Yes, Larry Kudlow did suffer a heart attack this week. He has recovered, apparently, you know.
Obviously, we're not wishing pain or death on someone.
Right.
Or
Sean,
Schadenfreude.
Right. Sean is just, doing his juvenile thing once again. Which will make him a darling of Twitter and Facebook later on today, I'm sure.
I'm already at that status.
I can already hear the people like, I just can't believe he just did that.
Go play with your spidget finner.
That's what we got to say.
You know, when they go low,
punch down. Dude, you got the high ground. Take it. And that's well. Look, hey, it's I don't know. That's the kind of the world we're in right now. I mean, this is a battle for the future of our planet. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like,
I'm not really concerned about morals or ethics at this point.
No, like Emily Post instructions on which side your knife goes on your plate are not exactly going to get us to the end of the game.
Excuse me, my salad fork is on the wrong side.
Right, exactly. We're going to find
fork is on the wrong side of the actual fork.
Right, exactly. We'll cross the finish line of that race on the table. Right, we will be the meal. But crazy. See, now you threw me all off. You start off with freaking. But so today, I mean, I guess the big news of the week is the Trump Kim Jong Un summit, I guess, right, in North Korea. You know, this thing is just.
So, I was gonna say, since you fucked up the intro, and we had to re-record it because you didn't record it
twice. Oh, come on, like, give me credit. We messed up. I messed up. I messed up twice. Come on, I want the credit.
I had the opportunity to watch the NPR video.
Yes,
the video on the NPR that the White House put out, the propaganda video, and I actually saw last night. I was like, I've been having some trouble sleeping the past few nights, just my mind's been really clear and not full of inhibitants, and so I've been laying wide awake on my bed, watching, reading the news on my phone, and I saw that a headline popped up. I didn't read it, that the White House created this propaganda video.
Yeah.
And people thought it was so well put together that it was North Korea that put together the propaganda video, until they found out that it was the White House that put together the propaganda video.
I thought it was a total joke. I swear to God, I thought it was a total joke.
And I just watched it, and I'm like, oh my God.
So so people who have not seen it, I want to play a brief thing. Now, Sean's not gonna be able to hear this, so Sean, I'll let you know. Sean's not gonna be able to hear this in terms of the way that thing is set up, but just listen to the way that this starts off. Okay, this is a trailer called a story of opportunity for North Korea, and it comes up. Destiny Pictures presents, right, and it's got this
7 billion people inhabit planet Earth. Of those alive today, only a small number will leave a lasting impact. And only the very few will make decisions or take action.
And so it's set up like this, and you can see all the clips coming up. The voices is like the voiceover for a movie. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because the funny part is this part.
An abundant
Let's see if I get it.
And when could this moment in history begin?
Here it is.
It comes down to a choice.
A choice.
On this day.
On this day.
In this time.
In this time.
At this moment.
At this moment.
The world will be watching.
The world will be
listening. Anticipating. Hoping.
And here it is.
Will this leader choose to advance his country and be part of a new world? Be the hero of his people?
Pictures of North Korea.
Will he shake the hand of peace?
Will he shake
and enjoy
the hand of
prosperity
peace?
like he has never seen?
And the best part?
A great life or more isolation?
Here it comes.
Which path
starring
will be chosen? Featuring President Donald Trump. And Chairman Kim Jong Un.
Oh my God, this thing is crazy.
To remake history.
Meeting to remake history. I mean, it's crazy. And they actually produced this, apparently, and Destiny Pictures, there's actually a real Destiny Pictures out in California who said, we had nothing to do with this. Right? And instead, you have the National Security Council putting out this bit of propaganda that this is how they're going to wage their foreign policy. I mean, it's crazy, Sean.
It's crazy. It's dangerous. And it's the amount of gaslighting going on from people on the left over this is absolutely stunning. Yes, we have a history of propping up dictators, overthrowing governments, and propping up brutal dictators that, our presidents have gleefully shook their hands with. Right. Pinochet, or, the Saudi Arabian people over in Saudi Arabia, people who have committed atrocities. And I'm sorry, but this is not someone that we should be propping up on an international level. I mean, and we shouldn't be propping up the Saudi princes and stuff like that. We shouldn't be propping up any dictator or extreme authoritarian. But this is just mind blowing. Right. I mean, and probably the deal. I haven't read the details of it. I've seen some of the headlines. I mean,
there are no details, Sean. There are no details.
It's going to be a feckless, toothless deal, and this is just nothing but a PR stunt for Trump. it's amazing at the time we live in that like Dennis Rodman and like it's almost like a fucking really bad movie that we're living in right now.
Yeah.
Like what's that Jim Carrey movie?
Where he lives inside that bubble.
Yeah, like he lives inside like his own TV show. I feel like that's what we're living inside right now, our own like reality TV show, and it's just not going to stop. And like we should be really concerned that like where like these lines are being created with these dictators, these authoritarians, like Duterte in the Philippines, or you know, Kim Jong Un or Putin. I mean, these are really bad actors that we are making alliances with, and you know you're already seeing some of the things that like Sessions is like parroting some of the talking points from Duterte when it comes to going after you know, drug users and stuff like that. I mean, like it's just not a step in the right direction.
No, right. And I think, you know, again, the important logic here is, and I know what you're talking about, the logic here is, okay, we should not be supporting brutal dictators, right? That's argument or claim number one, or principle number one. Principle number two. Therefore, we should not be supporting, right, and propping up someone like Kim Jong Un, who has been a brutal dictator in North Korea, right? And it also means that we should also not be propping up things like people in Saudi Arabia, right, and the other ones. It's not. It's like the argument is not, well, he's making this thing with North Korea, right? Well, we propped up other dictators, so therefore,
and we have a history of, you know, palling around with them, and
right, like, which is all true, right? No one's denying that, right? But that doesn't mean that this guy, that we should therefore be extending our support of dictators, right, in such a public way, you know.
And then creating a propaganda video with it. I mean, like, if the point of like is to denuclearize North Korea, then why did we rip up the Iran deal?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. It's not good. You know, it's not good. And like I talked about this on the podcast last week a little bit. And if you look at this quote unquote summit, right, they produced these 4 principles of agreement, which is like, seriously, it's like if you read through the agreement, find for me the specifics in this, right? There was a big kind of like row this morning, I guess, with Mike Pompeo was talking to journalists, and the journalist basically said, well, you know, okay, you've got this quote unquote agreement, these statements, but there's actually no discussion whatsoever in there about verification and all this. And Pompeo gets all pissed off, right? And basically said, oh, you're a liar. You're like this scum. Of course there is. You're lying about this. You're a horrible, you know, just attacks the journalist for basically pointing out that there's nothing in this that says there's about verification. And then I listened this morning, right after I dropped my kids off from school, I was listening to NPR, and they were interviewing some official in the Trump administration, right, who's talking about the deal. And the host of NPR was Morning Edition was basically asking, well, look, there's, you know, Pompeo got all mad about this, but there is no discussion of verification. So what? And the guy's like, oh, you just got to assume that, right? That's already a given, right? Well, if it's a given, where the frick is it, right? And what blew my mind, and then the guy, the NPR host, basically asked him again, so well, you just got rid of the Iran deal because you're critical of it because it wasn't there wasn't enough verification. Yet here, there's not even a mention of it, and it just like this guy didn't even balk at it. It was like it seemed to be like, I don't understand what the issue is, right? And this is dangerous stuff. And what we see is this kind of ongoing alliance with these kind of anyone who's willing to blow smoke up Trump's ass, right? And it also shares that kind of authoritarian, yes, and shares that authoritarian background. He's willing to, you know, he's willing to meet with them and eat his chocolate cake with them and all that other kind of crap, man.
Yeah.
That's
and
nuts.
The other thing that came out last week that I thought was awesome was the Angela Merkel photo.
Oh my God, that was awesome.
Like, we were talking about this beforehand, like just from like a photography
describe the picture for people first, so just in case people haven't seen it.
It's the perspective is from like the side view. You have Merkel with her hands down on a table, leaning over, with Trump just pouting and his arms crossed as they're talking. And it's the type of thing where everyone else is standing besides Trump. And for me, like the photo is so powerful. Like from that perspective, the person who shot the picture was working with was working in Merkel's staff, was a staffer for Merkel. Like some people showed like different perspectives of the photo, from like someone standing in the back, someone standing from a different angle. To me, like that angle captured that meeting so perfectly. Like that whole entire, like just the expression on Trump's face, like the expression on everyone else's face, and almost like she is is like leading the power. Like she has all the power in that photo. And he doesn't even show her the dignity of standing up and speaking to her. Like he's sitting down with his arms crossed. It just shows you that to me, it symbolizes how this administration treats women. Like, it's the type of thing where it treats power as well. It's a power dynamic. It's that women shouldn't be involved in politics, and that they're pretty much nothing, and that he is above everyone else. Well, like that's what I got out of the photo.
Well, I looked at, when I first saw it too as well, I just saw the utter like childishness of it. I mean, the fact that he's sitting there, you're talking about the, most important, at least kind of global partners, right? Of the U.S., right? Well, some of them, like in the G7, at least those folks that are connected with some sort of form of, or at least want to connect some sort of form of liberal democracy or social democracy, however you want to kind of like do it. These folks are there to meet, and Trump is just sitting down with his arms crossed. No, I don't want to. And it's like you've got all these people standing up. You look at some of the expressions in their face, you're like, we're really doing this, right? I mean, there's a bit of exasperation on people's faces and concern, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like like you have, and it's like every foreign dignitary involved in the G summits there and stuff with like, Bolton's off to the side with his crazy mustache. I am the walrus. It is. To me, it is a powerful and emotional, and it's just a great photo. I mean, it just simplifies the whole entire weekend, and how much of a clusterfuck the G7 turned out to be with, us trying to start a trade war with Canada, our allies to the north, and and then Trump wants to, we're going to build a border wall going all the way across Canada. We're going to try to fence ourselves off, like on both sides of the border, and isolate ourselves completely. Well, it symbolizes where we're going.
Yes, it does.
Towards like that Fourth Reich is what one of my friends called it on Facebook.
I'm telling you. Well, there was Guy Lawson, right? The journalist Guy Lawson was on the Majority Report this week, and talking about a piece, his recent piece in New York Times called "First Canada Tried to Charm Trump, Now It's Fighting Back," and I'll talk about the piece in a minute. But what in the interview, what was striking to me is that, and I have to say, he was having trouble even finding the words for this because it's such a new kind of development. But as he was writing this story about Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, is kind of like pushing back against the trade sanctions and stuff like this that the Trump organization has put forward. Trudeau and some of the high-level ministers around, not just Canadian ones, but other ones, have been talking about what to do. And frankly, the thing that was most striking to me that Lawson talked about was, say, listen, he's like, Sam Cedar said, well, look, there's some feeling by some sectors of like the American population, right, that, okay, look, Trump's our president now, like, but he's going to be gone soon, right? So then we can get back to normal once he's gone. And what Guy Lawson was saying, what he kept on hearing from these officials, Canadian and European, is like, no,
this
you guys,
is irreparable damage.
Well, you guys, no, you don't get a do-over. Is because it's not. He said, like, increasingly, right? People around the world do not make a separation between the Trump administration and the rest of us, right? Like, we have a certain kind of comfort level in our own media sphere where we think, like, well, Americans, because like the majority of people actually voted for Hillary Clinton because she's our president now. No. Right? That she won the popular vote, right? And it's true, right? Okay, that's true. But from the world's perspective, they're looking at, okay, that doesn't mean you guys get a gimme on this. It means that you, as a society, elected Donald Trump. This is no longer the American people are good and you got a bad administration. No. This is...
You decided to jump off the cliff as a collective.
Exactly. And
as a collective group of people.
Right. And so for now on, right, that is what's at the foreground. It says now, because, okay, yeah, you say it's going to be returned to normal after Trump is gone, right? With what? President Pence, if he's impeached, right? Or even a Democrat. He said, but from the world's perspective, no, you've just showed us that if this is possible, that you are willing to elect a person like this to the highest office and do irreparable damage, as you said. To treaties, to relationships, to long-standing partnerships. And so what's happening now, these people that are kind of been involved with these discussions for a long time are now turning away from saying, okay, we I don't know how we deal with the U.S. And I think that we are entering, and this is Guy Lawson's point too as well, we're entering a brand new historical moment where there is no guarantee that Americans are ever going to get the gimme like before. And what Guy Lawson said, he said there's a real problem with that. On the one hand, this is done as a result of being forced, those folks feeling they had to be forced to make this decision because they can't trust Americans anymore. That means us, folks, not just the people in the office. Right? They can't trust us to do the right thing anymore. But the U.S., so imagine this, Europe and everyone turns away from the U.S., but the U.S. is in a position where it has the largest military force on the planet. And what Guy Lawson's concern was, and what he brought up for us, he's like, the problem is that what happens when you start ignoring the United States and someone like Donald Trump stops getting their way? He said his concern is that they're going to increasingly resort to force, right? Which only reinforces exactly the tendencies that we've been talking about in terms of the shift towards authoritarianism. It's nuts, man.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's crazy. I don't know if was it with Dave Weigel? I was listening to a podcast last week. Like, we built the modern foundation of what this country is, of what the world is at this point. Like, we, after like World War II, we built, I mean, like, through good or through bad, right? I mean, there's a lot of issues definitely with, we established the United Nations. We established the World Bank and the IMF through the Bretton Woods. We became that superpower, one of the sole superpowers, and we built up the rest of the world through our military machine and through our economic power and through, wielding power through the IMF and the World Bank, right? I mean, and using those type of those contracts and loans and forcing nations to privatize their industries that were once state-owned, or give them ridiculous interest rates and indebt them. And we are walking away. We are walking away from the experiment that we created back in the 1940s and 1950s. And we idealistically, yes, these things are bad, but we just can't walk away. It is impossible for us to walk away from this. And that is what we are doing. And we are going to bring down the rest of society with us if we decide to just throw up our hands in the air and walk away.
Right.
Because of how much we are responsible for everything in this modern globalized world.
Right.
And I hate to sound like Friedman, but this is just the realities of globalization and the game that we set up post World War II. And we decided to walk away from everything by electing Trump, and this could be like a societal failure. This is how bad this could be.
Look. I think the story that we tell about ourselves, like Americans, not our government, right, is very often is that we look on the bright side of stuff. We look at the heroic story. We look at the advancement of democracy. We look at building the middle class and all this kind of stuff. We look at kind of fighting kind of like against and defeating Nazi Germany and things like this, right? But the fact is, right, when you're talking about anything that has ever been achieved for people in this country has been the result of collective struggle. I mean, Rick Smith talks about this all the time, is that what built the middle class in this country? The labor movement, a militant labor movement built the middle class in this. What was the expansion? Why did we get an expansion of kind of civil rights, right, and a kind of suffrage for women and African Americans? The end of slavery was the collective
people taking
organizing.
their beatings in public.
Exactly. And that's what it meant. And so if when I'm saying we got to be very careful about how we use this word we, right? Because there's the we when we suppose that our interests are the same as those people in power, those kind of corporate oligarchs, right? And our politicians that are elected versus the rest of us, right? Occupy Wall Street was right about talking about the 99% and the 1%. Is that we have to start saying there's two different we's. There's the we, the official we, and those are the politicians and those are the corporate oligarchs and those people that are kind of deciding the stuff. And then there's the rest of us. If anything, we, the rest of us, what we have walked away from, or at least bought into at some degree, is that somehow good will happen on its own, not through collective organizing. And we've seen that through the decimation of the labor movement. We see the decimation of women's rights or the constant attack against women's rights. We see what's happening in terms of immigration policy right now. All those things that are supposed to be values that we, quote unquote, believe in are being stripped away because we don't have an organized response. Now that is changing, right? But that has to be at the forefront. We have to accept the fact that they are people who will do bad things unless we force them to do right. And there is no other way around it. They're not going to do it on their own. The king will not save us. We have to save ourselves. And I think this is where this leaves us, is that at the very least, maybe this government, right, the government that we have right now, will wake us up to that fact and never allow us to return to the complacency that has allowed this to take place at this point. I don't know, man. It's frightening to me, Sean. It's just frightening when you see this kind of crap.
I know. Like you see what's happening. I mean, I think it's a good in segue to two things that saw this week. Cal exit. Like there is a plan. Now it has to get certified by the Secretary of State in California for this to happen. But I mean, there is a plan to split California into 3 separate states. I mean, and like, this is to split California in 3 separate states. You have the Los Angeles mid-coastal region would be California. You have Southern California, which would be San Diego and like all the conservative counties going out through the desert and everything like that. And then you have Northern California, which would be like San Francisco, the tech hub of like Northern California, where all the technocrats are at. And this is funded by a right winger. This is something that Nigel Farage actually is advocating for. And like, so you have that happening right now. And then on the other side of the country right now, you have Virginia Republicans. They just nominated Corey Stewart for the U.S. Senate. And Stewart has ties to white nationalists, neo-Nazis, and he was an organizer with the Charlottesville hate rally that went on last year. I mean, we are watching a party disintegrate in real time. We're watching our political system almost disintegrate in real time. And if there is no opposition, like actual opposition out there, instead of like saying we'll do marginal, radical opposition to the left, we're not going to be able to drag ourselves out of this. Like Democrats, the center is broken.
Right.
I mean, people were saying in the past couple of years, the center is breaking. No, it's done. It's broken. There is no other alternative than the center. This moderate or this radical centrism of like Macron or people like Martin O'Malley, that's just bullshit. That is, sorry, there is no radical centrism. It is, you either have us go down, be taken down with the craziness that's happening with the Republican Party, let them drag everyone down with them, or establish an actual opposition.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And I think that, what we saw happen in the primaries, right, out in Pittsburgh and in Philadelphia with the DSA candidates, Sarah Innamorato, right, Summer Lee, and Fiedler, Elizabeth Fiedler down in Philadelphia. That's the direction, and we've talked about this on the show before, is that, we can live in an ideal world where, we're not going to kind of get our hands dirty with any kind of impurities in the political process. So we're not going to support the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party is bad, right? So we're going to go off, we're going to have an independent party and be completely ineffectual. Or We're going to ask questions about how do you organize within the existing system in order to gain power and to become an opposition. And I think that, again, those three women who I just talked about, right? Sarah Innamorato, Summer Lee, and Elizabeth Fiedler are pointing in that direction.
And there are some actual left candidates on the ballot in Pennsylvania besides them three.
No, totally.
Like, there are a lot of left candidates on the ballot, not just with Fetterman, but there are actual left candidates that are probably going to get elected into the State House and State Senate coming up in November. And we're going to see we're starting to see things change.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I mean, because I'm going to tell you is that this is why, look, and I've said this 1,001 times, but I hate having to constantly plug and constantly ask people to become members of Raging Chicken Press to support independent media. But frankly, that is the only thing that is going to be successful. The only thing is that we're going to step up at ourselves, right, and support media that is going to cover it, movement media. Right, so patreon.com/RC Press, folks. And it becomes even more important right now, especially since there were two things I just want to talk about briefly, because Ajit Pai, okay, who is the head of the FCC, right? We've talked about this before. He basically led the charge to change FCC rules and eliminate net neutrality. Right, so for those of you who are just kind of getting up to speed on this kind of stuff, net neutrality is basically the whole idea that nobody gets privileged. Right, everyone has equal access to the airwaves. So this is from The Verge. I just want to kind of read you a bit of this so that you kind of know exactly. Here's at its base. So I'm quoting from The Verge. At its core, net neutrality means that all online traffic is treated equally. The rules put in place by Wheeler's 2015 Open Internet Order prevented internet providers from throttling or blocking traffic or offering paid fast lanes. This was done by classifying providers as Title II carriers under the Telecommunications Act of 1934 and 1996. As long as Wheeler's classification was in place, it provided a strong legal backing for treating the internet as a public utility along the lines of telephone service, electricity, and running water. The Ajit Pai order rescinds this classification in an attempt to return to what he often refers to as a, quote, successful light-touch regulatory framework, unquote. The Restoring Internet Freedom Order reclassifies the Internet as a Title I service instead of a common carrier. That means regulators have no legal basis to block paid prioritization, throttling, or other violations of net neutrality. In essence, carriers are free to do what they want, and any problems are left to the market to sort out. Okay, what that means in practice, so you think about this, is that if you turn on your tap, right, you turn on your tap water, right, you get water, just like your neighbor gets water, right? Yes, there's a water bill and things like this, right? But you pay for your internet service connection too as well, right? But the water that you get is the same as your next door neighbor's water, right? The electricity you turn on, right, is very often, not in some cases not so much, same as the next door neighbor's. That's the same thing with what net neutrality meant, right? Now, imagine the TV that you get, say, if you were to actually kind of just get a digital-ready TV and turn it on and just want your local stations that are broadcast in the air, you get those things for free. You don't pay for those, right? If you want cable, however, you have to pay a service, and if you want premium channels, you got to get these, you got to pay extra money and all that kind of stuff. That cable model is the model that they just kind of are instituting. So someone like Raging Chicken Press, this podcast, for example, right? Unless we have a privileged lane, right? Unless we're willing to pay whatever the market will bear, right? Our service could be slowed down, right? And so if you are a major media network like Fox News, for example, you're not going to have a problem with that. But if you are independent progressive media, right? If you are people that are trying to do muckraking reporting and this kind of stuff, right? If you are reporting on labor issues, on women issues and things like this kind of vast kind of sphere that we have in the internet of kind of assembling and taking a critical look at the world, that is in jeopardy. Right. And so, again, this is why we've been hammering on this for a long, why we've covered net neutrality before. Right. Become a member of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Go to patreon.com/RC Press to help support this. And then we have to find a way to turn this stuff back. That's important. That is doubly important now because this past week we also saw a court ruling that gave the green light for the AT&T and Time Warner merger. right? This is something that for, again, the Trump administration was actually saying, they didn't want this thing to go through. But this court is kind of given the green light. And now we're going to basically see an era of media consolidation that we haven't seen since Bill Clinton first deregulated much of the communication infrastructure. So be prepared, folks. Things are not setting up in terms of an actual material infrastructure, are not setting up for good times are headed our way. No, these should be only signals that we need to double down and organize. So, cool. I don't know. I mean, that just concerns me. That concerns me. But I don't know. So I guess some lighthearted stuff to end the segment with. At least you have Sarah Huckabee Sanders seems to be on her way out, Sean.
She says she's not, but
Yeah. Well, after CBS reported on this, she tweeted out. She says, "Does CBS News know something I don't about my plans and my future? I was at my daughter's year-end kindergarten event, and they ran a story about my plans to leave the White House without even talking to me. I love my job and honored to work for POTUS." Right?
Well, it looks like Michelle Wolf got the best of her.
Yeah, well, that's we'll see. We're gonna know pretty soon. And the fact is that when you have someone, when Sarah Huckabee Sanders says, "Does somebody know something about my future, the plans that I don't?" Probably, probably somebody else does know about those plans, right? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe Trump has finally had it. Maybe she's just basically said she's going to wait for him to announce it or something like that. Who knows what's going on? Or maybe it's just a whole bunch of people who love the palace intrigue, just want to keep on that. Who knows? But in other potential stuff, there's big questions about Michael Cohen going on right now.
Yeah, I have not been really paying attention to this too much. I didn't realize that Michael Cohen had to refinance his mortgage or take a loan out on his home, a home equity loan or a line of credit or whatever, to pay off Stormy Daniels for this. But so and Larry O'Donnell made a really good point about this last night. Because I was watching it and I couldn't go to sleep. I fell asleep for a couple hours during the middle of the day, so I was up watching MSNBC till 12 o'clock at night and reading Ratf, which we'll talk about later. But O'Donnell was like, he is so broke, he had to take a mortgage out or refinance his mortgage to pay off Stormy Daniels. So what makes you think that he's going to have these lawyers that are going to cost tens of thousands of dollars a week, and he can't afford them because they're going to want the money up front. They're not going to want to be paid at a later date. They're going to want that type of money. But they're going to take on a risk or a case like that. It's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're going to want that money up front, and he doesn't even have the money for that.
Yeah, I wonder. Because here's the interesting thing about this, right? Yes, he did that, right? He took out the mortgage. He mortgaged his house in order to pay this stuff. But he set up this kind of LLC out of Delaware or something like this, right? As this pass-through company. And since it's set up in order to kind of pay Stormy Daniels, he's been basically getting hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars deposited into this quote-unquote consulting account, right? And millions of dollars are going in there, and there's big questions about what's that money doing? Right, yeah. Right. And he's been basically hawking his skills, quote unquote, for, to provide access or, inside the mind of Donald Trump kind of stuff to a bunch of companies and countries. And they've been kind of socking some money in there.
I mean, this is exactly goes to the point you made, I could say over a year ago. Yeah. That this is all Cohen's nothing but a mob lawyer.
That's right. That's exactly.
And this is just this. You made the right analogy with Putin and Trump. This is a mafia family that became famous, and now since the light's being shined on them, all their stuff's just coming out, and it's you're exactly right about a year ago with this. This is all mafia connected, mafia related type of deals. That's
exactly what it is. Exactly. I mean, if you grow up in Utica, New York, right, you recognize this pattern.
I've seen this game before.
Yes, exactly. You just go down to Grimaldi's, you're going to have some pasta, and you listen to the table next to you, and you learn things. That's all I'm saying. Oh man. But so we're going to see where this goes on. I mean, there's a lot of speculation right now in the kind of corporate media about what's going to happen here with Cohen. Cohen just fired his legal team, and people are saying that signals a change in legal status. Maybe the lawyers are saying to him, dude, you're done. Like, they got you. Don't you understand? And Cohen said, well, I don't want to be dead, so bye. I'm going to go hire some Russian lawyer to help me out. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this.
And now, do you think that Manafort, does he make it to jail? Do you think he...
That's a good question.
Like, does he get... I mean, we were talking about... I mean, like, he's at the point where he might just get snuffed.
He might. I mean, it's like, again, actually, sending him to jail is probably... Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know if that's
sending him to jail would probably be a bad thing. Like, he'll probably get it in jail or...
Yeah, who knows? I think... I have no basis for this. I want to be clear about this right now. I have no basis for this, but I have this gut feeling that something is going to happen. Like, some major thing is going to happen around the Manafort story. And I don't mean like it's gonna like take down Trump, not like that, but there's gonna be something. Someone's
gonna end up dead.
Something. I mean, I don't know what it is. I just have this feeling about the way that narrative is going, I guess, and it seems to want to do it, but who knows? Maybe those will just peter out and he'll get prosecuted and he'll go to jail. I don't think there's any chance in the world that he'll flip at all, because if he flipped on Russian oligarchs. Right, him and his family are dead.
Yeah.
So there's no way. I mean, that's a motivating factor to keep your mouth shut. Right. I mean, that's all I'm saying. The fact is, he's on house arrest, and he's actually trying to kind of like influence and manipulate witnesses, right, for the case. Tells you the degree of desperation that's going on there. So that dude's not flipping. Nope, not a chance. Right. He might end up spending the rest of his life in jail. Right. As long as he keeps his mouth shut, that might just be his home for the rest of his life.
And it might be a short-lived life in jail.
Yeah, that'll be his nursing home. So, there you go. Well, we'll see if he keeps his... The thing is, right, he goes in there and keeps his mouth shut, right, and you got a bunch of kind of Russian mobsters that are in there, right, and they say, hey, good job keeping your mouth shut, right? They might just protect him for the rest of his days in there, right, to make sure that, he doesn't get touched and he's just going to have to live his life freaking rotting away in a cell, maybe. Or... if he even kind of whispers a word, I don't put him on this earth very long. But
yeah,
again, that's just kind of this is a mob analysis kind of thing. But anyways, all right. So that kind of wraps us up on all the kind of fun and joy that's happening in our world today, right? Well, looking for the kind of coming dictatorship to a town near you, right? Look out for, do you see new police in your town that are dressed up in uniforms and looking awful angry at brown people? Well, that is just our view into our future, right? Exactly. Oh, great. All right, well, we're going to go into some little PA focus. And our PA focus, I have to say, is a little bit lighter on the day. It was a national focus. But I want to remind everybody, once again, you're sick of me saying it, but go to patreon.com/rcpress and become a member of Raging Chicken Press. Keep the movement in the media in the movement by becoming a member today. We'll be right back with our PA focus.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day John L. Lewis called miners who worked for Little Steel coal subsidiaries out on strike. It was an act of solidarity as conditions worsened on steel strike picket lines. The walkout was designed to force the closure of steel mills by stopping the flow of coal. 10,000 workers in as many as 19 mines owned by Republic Steel, Bethlehem Steel, and Youngstown Sheet and Tube dropped their tools. Bethlehem had not been one of the independent steel companies initially included in the Little Steel strike, but workers at its Cambria works in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, walked out in sympathy with railroad workers at Bethlehem-owned Blacklick and Conemaugh Railroad. They had been refused a contract. Striking miners in Johnstown marched to Cambria Works to join the 7-mile stretch of picket lines. In Ohio, the Canton Federation of Labor voted unanimously for a general strike if the newly formed Citizens League attempted to force reopening of the steel mills. SWAC leader Van Bittner threatened to call out another 600,000 miners by week's end if the strike was not settled. John L. Lewis remarked, quote, "Labor is menaced by the force of arms of Republic Steel Corporation. Labor is calling attention to this situation so the law, government, or public opinion can begin functioning before another massacre takes place." UAW President Homer Martin added, quote, "It is our purpose to spread the light of democracy to every part of this land until until autocracy and industrial slavery have been driven from the country. But Johnstown civic leaders and town officials had formed a citizens committee and prepared for battle as the miners approached. It seemed there was no end to the anti-strike violence. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. It is the PA Focus segment, everybody. It was a big day in the Capitol this week as all hell broke loose, huh, Sean?
Yes. So the gerrymandering reform that Fair Districts Pennsylvania has been pushing for completely blew up in everyone's face this week. And as this blew up in everyone's face on the Senate, I was up in the gallery watching this this absolutely brutal, violent destruction of this bill going on. I mean, it's the first time
Is that what's happening?
it was the first time I watched a bill just get destroyed like that in person. I went back to my apartment, saw what was going on the live stream. Was like, you know what, this is actually pretty important. Got my camera gear, got all my equipment, went back to the Capitol, sat up in the gallery to watch the arguments around this amendment go on. After that, went down the rotunda, and the press conference happened. But as that was going on, I was texting Dave Daley through Twitter. He's one of the journalists I talk to sometimes. He started following me back when we started writing about the gerrymandering issues back in January and February. And so we've been talking a little bit back and forth, and I sent him a message like, hey, you have to really start paying attention, right, to what's going on right now to this gerrymandering reform bill. And what this bill is, Senate Bill 22, they took out the independent commission in state committee. And some of the criticism that Fair Districts got was, well, since they took out the independent commission, we're still going to push ahead with this bill just so we can have a win instead of just wiping our hands and walking away. So this gets out committee, the no independent commission, then the omnibus goes there, and then still the independent. So now this cements Republicans to have power of the drawing process. So, and this is a constitutional amendment. So we'll go into this later on. Mm-hmm. Then what I was texting Daley about was a amendment that the Augment Amendment, and that would split the Pennsylvania Supreme Court into 7 judicial districts. The Republicans will be able to get to draw that through the gerrymandering process, and then it would do the same thing with the Commonwealth and Superior Courts. These 3 courts are statewide courts, and this is complete retaliation against the courts because of their partisan gerrymandering decision. And why this is so important, because as I was texting Dave Daley, he responded back to me. He's like, hey, I'm an hour outside of Harrisburg. I'm actually coming up there to interview people. And he was interviewing the Fair Districts people. So as the Senate is starting to break, he walks in the building. And this is as everyone's getting set up for the press conference. So I texted Dave, like, hey, we're upstairs, 2nd floor rotunda. You should probably come up here and watch this press conference. It's going to be pretty fucking astounding. Mm-hmm. And this is his first time. So he comes up and we shake hands. We start talking and like, hey, it's great meeting you. And he's like looking around the Capitol, all like at the pure opulence of this building.
Right.
And I said, so this is your first time here in this building? He goes, yeah. So it's nice. I was like, and I went, he's like, everyone who built this building ended up in jail.
It's so fitting.
And he kind of just like looked at me like, what? And I explained about the architect and the corruption and how like pretty much the culture of corruption and dirty tricks and dirty politics is ingrained into like the granite facade of the building. The tile and the artwork and everything in that building is just ingrained in corruption and everything. And start talking, and no, it was really nice. And so we... And
you should say, I mean, Dave Daley, we've talked about this before, he wrote the book Rat Fucked, right? Which is
like the intellectual basis, in my opinion, Rat Fucked. I have not read it yet. I am reading it now. But it is the intellectual background or the intellectual foundation for the fight against partisan gerrymandering.
Yeah, and he
specifically focuses on what happened in Pennsylvania with the gerrymandered districts, and Wisconsin and Ohio and South Carolina, all these states that got gerrymandered to pieces from the Republicans because of their red map plan, which was they specifically targeted the state legislatures that controlled the drawing process and who had Republican governors and need to flip like 2 or 3 seats in each of these states in order to take control of the gerrymandering process, so Republicans can draw themselves into a majority party for the next decade. Right? This is what the thesis of his book is pretty much about, like
right.
his
and,
red map.
And we should say too is that he actually in that book, I mean, it's like this is not conjecture on his part. I mean, he actually has interviews. Like he interviewed the Republicans who were like responsible
leading
for
this red map.
Yeah,
program.
and they were pretty kind of upfront about what they were doing with it. I mean, they didn't kind of try to say, "Oh, no, it's not." No, they were saying, "No, this is kind of how we kind of went about and doing this stuff," and how
because they know like we're going to ensure ourselves a majority for the next decade.
Exactly, and this is we've hit on this program. We've hit many times. We talk about this long-term strategy and kind of multi-cycle strategy on part of kind of Republicans, particular parts of the Republicans. This is a perfect example of it.
So, and so I guess like some of the funny thing is, so we're up there waiting for this press conference to start after they just completely destroyed this bill and are pushing this bullshit amendment to gerrymander all the courts into pieces. And someone's like, "Who's he?" A news reporter asks me, "Who's this guy?" I was like, Dave Daley, and they kind of like looked at me side-eyed, like
who's
who?
Dave Daley? Dave Daley? I don't know Dave Daley.
He wrote the book Ratfucked, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "The book," like, I'm just like the book on like gerrymandering.
He's the guy.
This is the guy who this is the guy where like these lawsuits are wrapped around, are the intellectual foundation for these lawsuits.
Right, exactly.
Like in my opinion, like what's happening in Ohio now, legal women voters are using the Pennsylvania playbook that just happened with partisan gerrymandering in the Ohio courts, because now there's precedent. Like his book outlined what happened in these states that are now going after partisan gerrymandering in the courts. And so next day, I
should say, like, the funny thing about him, funny thing about that book, right? He called it, I remember when it first came out, and he was interviewed on probably the Majority Report or something like this, and he talked about the title of the book, Ratfucked, right? And he's like, I had to really question this, but that's what it is. And he said ratfucking is an actual term in American like politics, which means political sabotage or dirty tricks, right? And it was first brought to public attention, and this is just straight from Wikipedia, by Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein in their nonfiction book, All the President's Men. And they talked about, that was the word that was being used, right? So that's where it comes from. It wasn't.
And like one of the biggest like rat fucking campaigns that happened was probably the Willie Horton ad.
Yeah,
was probably like the most famous, most notable one. I mean, there's other ones that sink people, but like that is like, you look at that ad, that is what rat fucking is.
Right, and the last thing I want to say about that is, so you have that, so the rat fucking did that. But one of the things he said about that in terms of the book, which just kind of goes to emphasize exactly the question that you got from some other reporters, like, who's this guy? He said, look, the problem is that when you're writing a book about gerrymandering, he's like, that makes most people think that they're just going to go to sleep. He said, but you got to understand, this is the actual like machine work of what is actually happening in terms of power politics. And so how do you actually get people's attention, right? Well, here's one way. But
yes. So the next day, he was in the Capitol yesterday, Wednesday. I did not have the opportunity to interview him. I wish I did. But we were talking. I was like, before you head off and do your stuff, I'm going to be around busy. It's like, I actually have a copy of Ratfuck with me. And he looked at me like I was like,
who carries around a copy of Ratfuck?
I was like, I got this off my bookshelf this morning. I was like, I want you to sign this book. And so he kind of he was like almost like surprised that like.
Yeah, he's like, nobody has ever asked me to sign a book on gerrymandering.
Yes. So he wrote for Sean, the journalist hero fighting to keep government honest, and the people informed. Thank you for your fight with great pleasure. And he signed his name, Dave Daley, which
that was pretty awesome. Very generous.
Which is awesome. I just he was blown away by it, almost like. Not embarrassed, but taken back that someone asked him. I'm like, no. I was like, listen, I have not had the opportunity to read this yet, but I've heard you interview many times on different podcasts, and I believe that this book is so critically important to the partisan gerrymandering fight we're having right now here in Pennsylvania.
Indeed.
Like, it's the intellectual foundation, in my opinion. So, jumping back, we're at the press conference now. And
bunch of very kind of upstanding people just trying to do the best for all of us.
yes, so we're outside, and one of the claims that the Republicans made at the thing was that one of the things that they did was claim that breaking out these judicial elections would increase voter turnout. And so,
Well, of course, right? I mean, you suppress the votes, so that's what keeps people coming out, right?
yeah. So I asked them a simple question:
What was that?
how will this increase voter turnout? And I posted the video up on the Facebook page and my Twitter account, and kind of got like a really weird reaction from them.
Well, it looks like the guy that was up there, right? That guy that was up there. Who was that? Who was talking?
Corman was at the podium.
Corman, right?
Senate Majority Leader Jake Corman.
Right. Corman just kind of seemed like he was kind of making it up on the fly a little bit about like how this was actually going to. I mean, responding to your question about how this is going to help.
Yeah, and then so he makes up this question, and then I had a follow up, which was, if you're so concerned about increasing voter turnout, how come you're not doing actual voter reforms like automatic registration or same day voting and stuff like that? And Corman kind of just like dished it off to Scarnati, and Scarnati was kind of like, dude, you couldn't answer the question. You had to give it to me.
He did. He looked like a deer in the headlights too, as well. I was like, "What? What? Me? What? How'd my name get up there? I was just asked to come and stand here, right?"
Yeah.
And like now, Scarnati's got the like, okay, yeah, he's going to deal with voter reform. Not it. Go touch it.
The nose knows.
Yes, exactly. Well, I have to say though, but one of the things that what you posted to Facebook was not all of the footage that you have, and I understand because the second part of the footage was a little bit. I know the quality wasn't as good as what you had at first, or something like this, because there was some noise in the background. But I just thought people should hear it because shortly after this, like you follow up that question again because you weren't satisfied with his answer. You follow up that question again, and I was able to kind of kind of adjust the audio and stuff like that so we could actually hear what was said. So this is after the piece that Sean posted about the press conference, when you got Corman trying to kind of like go all over the place to answer this because this will happen and this will happen. Sean asked again the follow-up question, and I did get the audio here. So this is exclusive Raging Chicken audio of the press conference about gerrymander. So I hope this came out okay.
How would this help voter turnout?
To better answer your question, I think I should turn it over to our experts.
Just turn the crank and snap the blank and boot the marble right down the chute. Now watch it roll and hit the pole and knock the ball in the rubber duck top, which flips the man into the pan. The trap is set. Here comes the net.
That's all, folks.
So that was it. I mean, it was a little odd. I mean, I guess people probably just kind of stood around and say, "What? Who was that? Who was that guy?" Let's hear that one more time, shall we? Here it is.
How would this help voter turnout?
To better answer your question, I think I should turn it over to our experts.
Just turn the crank and snap the blank and boot the marble right down the chute. Now watch it roll and hit the pole and knock the ball in the rubber duck top, which flips the man into the pan. The trap is set. Here comes the net.
That's all, folks.
So obviously somebody knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like they don't like getting asked serious questions.
No, exactly. And this, I put that together because, like, I swear to God, when I watched that first and you and I first talked about that, is like what Corman's response. That's what it sounded like to me. That's from the old.
That's all, folks.
Well, but it sounded like to me like that whole little thing coming to lead up to is from that game Mousetrap. You ever play that game Mousetrap?
And if not,
well, it's like it's seriously, it's just exactly what it is. That's from like a 1990s commercial or something like this for this game where you set it up and there's like, you move around the board. It's a board game, and then certain things happen, and then if you try to catch somebody, you like flick this one thing, and there's this marble that rolls down and kind of causes one thing to go down, another thing to pop up and fly on it, and the cage comes down and drops on the mouse, right? It's like that kind of stuff, and that's what it was like. He was just kind of making crap up, like, well, this happens, and then it goes over here, and then there's the magic, and there's the unicorn and squirrel and voter turnout, right? I mean,
I think there's a raccoon climbing up on the
exactly.
On the
Oh yeah, and Scarnati. It was like, I was like, that's what it's like. It's like you just like making up some sort of freaking like cartoonish like chain of associations that somehow add up to like voter turnout. It's nuts, man.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and it's also like it's such a good question. It's an elegant question because it's just eloquent. It's just because it just calls it's a really simple question, and it just calls them on their bullshit.
Yeah. And it's asking, and there you go.
And like, and no one, everyone. I love asking the type of questions where like everyone just like looks at me. Like, what's the point of like asking that question?
Yep. Ibbity, that's all, folks. There's the point. They have not even. This has nothing to do. They cannot. They have not even thought about this as even like trying to make a public case about how this happens. They're just going to talk out their asses because look, just like you said, they're not used to getting asked hard questions. Or I should even say,
I wouldn't say it was a hard question.
Right? Exactly.
It was just like a
direct one.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, you're proposing this. That's the what, right? So I'm just going to go down the chain of questions that journalists are supposed to ask and say, if that's the what, give me the how. You're claiming this. How is that going to happen? And they're like, squirrel.
Sometimes like the one things I learned from like the reporters, sometimes the best questions are just the simple 3 or 4 word questions.
It's true.
Because it puts the ball in their court.
Yep.
And so I guess moving on from this press conference, one of the serious things that's coming out of this, the Senate Bill 22 is a constitutional amendment, right? So they passed it out of the Senate yesterday. This gives Republicans the power to draw themselves into a permanent majority from like 2030 and beyond. Right. Like we were talking back in 2010, once that midterm happened, like everyone knew like the consequences of that election will be far reaching into 2020.
Yep.
What this legislation will do is ensure them a permanent majority status in the legislature from 2030 and beyond.
Exactly, because, and here's the key, folks, right? Remember we talked about before in the last segment, we talked about how the king will not save you. Right, is that they can move through this process, right? And Governor Wolf cannot veto this.
Yes. So this is the thing. Now, this is a complete power grab, and they have nothing to lose by going ahead with this. Because if they lose, if they do not go ahead with this, they will get crushed once 2022 comes around and the new maps are enforced. Because the way the maps work right now is the caucus leaders, so the minority caucus, the majority caucus, right, from both chambers have a say at the table, right? So you have 4 people at the table, and they are the leaders from each party, the 4 leaders. And then the deciding factor is the Supreme Court. So if it's a Republican Supreme Court, they put a Republican judge on there, which is what happened in 2010, and you get these gerrymandered maps. If it's a Democratic Supreme Court, which it will be once the new maps are drawn, it will be a 3-2 majority for Democrats. And they will be able to enact these congressional maps. Or if the Republicans do not want to enact these congressional maps, then we stay with the same maps we have right now from the Supreme Court. So this move, Senate Bill 22, is an attack on the Supreme Court because they are trying to reform in quotes, this system simply to draw themselves into a permanent majority. Now, think about it. You have Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, 2 population centers. Then you're going to have 5 other districts, judicial districts throughout the country. That means the tier is going to get a district. That means South Central Pennsylvania is going to get a district. That means Northwestern Pennsylvania is going to get a district, which is just Erie County. There's nothing else out there. It means Northeastern Pennsylvania. Those are going to be 5 districts right there that will lean Republican, and then you will have a 5-2 Supreme Court for Republicans.
Right, 5-2. Everybody, think about that. 5-2.
So we're going from a 5-2 Democratic Supreme Court elected on statewide races to a 5-2 Republican court, simply because they cannot win statewide races anymore because they are becoming a regional party.
That should scare the crap out of anybody listening to this.
And they have nothing to lose by going ahead with this.
Right.
If they want to.
Right.
And they have till June 6th to do this. And another question I asked at the press conference was, what's the timeline for this?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, theoretically, this could be on the ballot by the May 2019 primary. If they are so concerned about voter turnout, they are going to put this on an odd year primary ballot with the lowest fucking turnouts possible. And then on top of that, they're going to use rhetorical tricks to trick people into voting for something they believe that they're not going to be voting for. And then the constitution of the state gets changed. And it's like that for perpetuity.
Yeah, you know what? I bet you I would put money on the fact that they're playing around. One of the things that they're going to play around with in terms of naming the bill, if this goes forward or whatever goes on the ballot, will be like fair districting for our judges.
Well, no, exactly. No. They're already there. They're already there. Like yesterday I was eavesdropping in on the Republican spokesperson giving a TV interview. I actually tweeted this out. She's like, well, if we have fair districts, why don't we have fair judicial districts?
There you go.
And there's not a damn thing we can do about it. There's not a fucking thing we can do about it because they hold all the power. And I talked about this with Metcalf a couple months ago, and people thought I was crazy. And no, like, you have to game this out. They are in complete power. You have to think about this in a power dynamic. Right. They have everything to lose by doing nothing. If they reform the system, they have near super majorities. Now, these bills only have to pass by a simple majority in both chambers, 2 sessions in a row. So this session is going to be ending on November 30th, right? It's the last day of the session.
Right.
They have until then to vote on this bill. Theoretically, they want to get this done by July 6th. They want to get this done by the time with the budget. So now organizations like Planned Parenthood and Pennsylvania Budget Policy Center and One Pennsylvania and, your progressive coalition
make the road. Yeah.
Make the road. And not only do they have to fight for a fair budget, they're now going to have to try to kill this in the next 2 weeks, the next 3 weeks. And if they go ahead with this, there's nothing you can do because Democrats aren't going to be able to take back the Senate. It's just impossible. And they're probably not going to be able to take back the House. And it's all about party discipline. And it's, if the Republicans have party discipline, they can do this. And this could be on the ballot by May 2019. And we could radically change our Constitution to ensure Republicans have permanent majority status in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
That means people like Darryl Metcalf or Mike Terzai are in leadership until they die.
Yep. And let's look at what's actually going to happen here, right? So
this is going to drive the politics of the state further to the right.
Right. So here's what's going to happen. So if they get this through, right, this is going to happen. We're expecting either this Monday, maybe the following Monday, right, the next couple of weeks, we're going to get the Janus Supreme Court decision come down, right, which is going to gut public sector unions, right, or yes, I'm going to say gut. That's what it's going to do. It's going to gut public sector unions, right? So basically, the folks that are on the kind of they are the ground movement, right, of the labor movement. So much that the Democratic Party leans on the labor movement so much to get out the vote and to organize and do that kind of stuff. You're just going to basically taking away that as part of the ground game. Right, so that's step number one. The Koch brother networks and these other kind of major donors have kind of been staying back, been gathering up their war chests, and they're prepared for what's their next move. Right, they've been staying. They stood out, not entirely out of the 2016 presidential election, but now they're going to be focusing on looking for where they can advance their cause. And if this goes through, and they say, I can guarantee you, there is going to be a flood of money into this state. To make the case for fair district for judges, which means permanent Republican majority. right? And then you can lock in any policy things. And then you talk about the party discipline of the Republicans. It's not just going to come from the apparatus, the Pennsylvania GOP. It's going to come from these outside groups that are going to do everything to kind of threaten these people.
It's going to come from people like Jankowski,
yes,
who worked for who in Ratfucked. He is the main person they talk to. He worked for the Republican State Legislative Committee, RSLC. The RSLC, he was the person going to the capitals and making sure Red Map gets through in 2009, 2010, 2011, and these maps get enacted.
Yep.
Like, it's people like him that are going to be coming to the Capitol and making sure this happens.
Yep. So this is why, again, this is one of the reasons why we wanted to spend so much time on this issue today, right? Because this, folks, hoping for the best hasn't worked out so well, right? So, call your legislators, right? Organize, right? Let people know about this. Get people listening to this podcast. Pick up a copy of Dave Daley's Radfuck book and read that damn shit. I'm also going to put some links in today's show notes, right? With some link to some interviews with Dave Daley, so you can kind of hear some, get caught up to speed. You see that what Sean and what's been frustrating for me personally, right? And I know for Sean, but is that Sean has paid attention to this kind of stuff for a long time. And has been poo-pooed a lot of times by some of the kind of more mainstream journalists who say, this is kind of like not going to go anywhere, blah, 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 blah. And because it doesn't, on their minds, the prospect...
Like it may not go anywhere. I hope I'm wrong, right? I hope it goes nowhere. But you think about this from a complete power dynamic.
Right.
It's either do nothing and get crushed by the new congressional maps that are going to be enacted, the new state maps, the new House and Senate maps, or do this and ensure yourselves a permanent majority and ensure yourselves, as Senator Vincent Hughes said, a tyranny of the majority.
Right. Exactly.
Which is also another interview I would recommend people listening to. I was able to catch Senator Vincent Hughes, who gave a passionate floor speech about the amendment, and I was able to catch him on the way out the Senate. We have a 5-minute interview up on our page. And basically, he said this is a bastardization of democracy. This is tyranny of the majority.
Tyranny of the majority, tyranny of the majority, yeah.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And, I just think, well, and what I mean by this, like, Sean, remember when we were talking about your first gaming some of this stuff out, weeks ago, right? The consensus, right, under kind of traditional mainstream media was that it's not going to go anywhere. Right. Well, guess
we're
what?
living in 2018. This is Trump as president. Like, anything could happen in our politics right now.
Well, this is the thing. But the thing is that when everyone was poo-pooing it weeks and months ago, right, now what just happened? A press conference about doing these things. You got operatives giving interviews, promoting this stuff with the kind of Republican leadership behind them. Right. So I don't know what more signs do you need? Right? This is not just something that people are talking about in a bar someplace. This is the leadership of the Republican Party in the state giving a press conference about what they're going to do. This is also after they attempted, right, to sue, to sue the Supreme Court, to try to get the U.S. Supreme Court to
impeach the Supreme Court.
Impeach the Supreme Court. I mean, what more signs do you need that they are playing a power game here? This is not just optics and politics. This is a power grab, as Sean has been arguing for a while. And yes, it might not go anywhere, but I guarantee if you wanted to see if it could actually go someplace, do nothing. Just throw up, they'll never do it. Keep on saying that
or
to
make
yourself.
alliances with the Republicans over a year and try to get this and not walk away. I mean, Fair Districts is got a lot of criticism because they didn't want to cut bait when they could have cut bait a few weeks ago, and maybe this bill never made it out of the Senate committee. If they would have just walked away with everyone else, Planned Parenthood and Budget and Policy Center, this might not have been an issue. But they decided to go for a win is a win, even though what they got was watered down and tampered down. They were hoping for a Senate floor amendment to make the bill a better bill. And I was talking to someone in Senate, or someone friend of mine from one of these groups that was, getting blasted, excoriated from Fair Districts, hey, you guys are being naive here. You don't know what you're doing. Just walk away before this blows up in our face. And he said, a bad bill is never made better on the floor of the Senate or the House. bad bills or good bills are always made worse when you're hoping on floor amendments.
Right.
And this is what we got.
Yep. Because words like that come from people who actually know how the machine works. Right.
And fair districts didn't want to do that. People from fair districts were calling these groups sellouts and everything like that. And
I don't know, man. Like people, we've got no time for this kind of garbage.
Yeah, now energy and focus is going to be on wasting time, money, energy, and resources in a budget fight to destroy this, to kill this bill.
Yep.
And frankly, they can push it through if they want.
Yep.
And there ain't a damn thing you can do.
There you have it, man. There you have it. Our future. Looking at it. All right, so pay attention to this, folks. We're going to see what's happening. You're going to hear more about this here on this podcast and stuff. But in the meantime, the Wolf campaign is going shopping, right?
Great segue. I guess we need to sun the light off the mood.
Something. I promised that the segment was going to be a little bit lighter, and I was like, I don't know what I was thinking.
Probably lighter in the amount of content that we had.
Okay, all right. I'll take that.
But yes, I thought this was awesome. I absolutely love the commercial of the Wolf campaign released yesterday. They made a "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" skit and took John Fetterman out shopping for a tie.
Yep.
Which was awesome, like the Odd Couple. This is my brother Larry. This is my brother Daryl. This is my other brother named Daryl. But I mean, like, I thought it was an awesome commercial. What else can you say?
Well, I think so. Basically, the whole premise
trolling
is
Scott Wagner, pretty much.
Yeah, that's exactly the whole premise of it. If you haven't seen the commercial, again, we'll have it in the show notes. Is that Tom Wolfe has John Fetterman over and says, "Hey, look, I'm glad to have you aboard. It's good, but they're kind of there's if you're going to preside over the Senate, what you got to do. They've got rules, and you have to have a necktie." So,
and they're really strict about that.
And they're really strict about that, he says, right? So you got to take him out for a necktie. And they, get into his Jeep, right?
I know, and then it cuts into "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" music.
Right. Sorry. I know. You're like, wait, no, don't forget that. Then they get in the Jeep and they go shopping for a tie. And, Fetterman can't get into the Jeep. He tells Wolf's got to pull the seat back. It's kind of funny, lighthearted and things. And there's some people that are kind of like, well, this is not like whatever. And
I thought the best part.
Yeah, go.
When Governor Wolf looks over and is like, Scott Wagner likes to compare himself to Rambo or Dirty Harry. Which one are you afraid of?
and Fetterman kind of like
chuckles,
and smirks and kind of walks the other direction. He's kind of like, I just kept on having. There was this skit on Saturday Night Live when I was a kid, right? It's like, you go to the beach, right, or wherever you're out like that, and you hold up your fingers like this, and you can because people are farther away, you can put their head in between them. You go, I squish your head, right? Like that. It was like that's kind of what I was thinking. Fetterman's going through his mind. I squished his head, right? But and the funny thing, so there were some people who were like, okay, this is not a serious campaign, blah blah. When I saw that, what my first response to it, that commercial was like, oh my god, this is totally like, it starts from the premise that they've already won the election, this is done with, right? So he's got to get John Fetterman dressed for the Senate, right? So he's going to get this kind of stuff. It's kind of like completely like ignoring like Wagner and like his other running mate, whoever the hell that is, right? I mean, that's the kind of premise. And like,
I know. So what I think is so awesome about it is like Wagner was like proud to be running with Bartos for the next, like 6 months, and so this is kind of like just putting that like, oh yeah, well.
Exactly.
Shove it right back in their face.
Right. And I totally think that's what the purpose of it. The purpose is just to kind of like stick your finger in the wound, kind of thing. So I don't mean like in the Jesus sense. I mean in the kind of like making it hurt more.
Stab, twist.
Oh God, stab, twist. Exactly. Well, so that was kind of fun. So, and I'll close out. So I mentioned this at the top. Raging Chicken is partnering up with me from Raging Chicken is partnering up with Colleen Fitzgerald from A Home Stony Run to deliver a brand new podcast to Pennsylvania. We call in this free range, and the podcast is really, it's going to focus on kind of politics, food policy. It's looking at kind of organic movements, sustainability, and really grounded in kind of Pennsylvania locales, right? With the whole idea that looking at the space of building kind of critical communities through, something that's so important to every single one of us, right? So that's food. And Colleen she's an amazing cook. She runs she's going to have a cookbook pretty soon that is going to blow up the market. I'm telling you, because this stuff, her pictures on Instagram at MZCC Fits are just gorgeous of the foods that she makes. And she, I've said this, and she always doesn't like me saying this, but it's true, is that she's like hands down one of the most brilliant people I know. In terms of ways of thinking about the interconnectedness and intersectionality between, say, global politics and what's happening down the street at your local farm. I mean, she just got an amazing way of bringing it together. And we've been talking about doing something for a while and looking for kind of the stars to align, so to speak, where we can do this. And we recorded our first episode yesterday. That was on the 13th. And we'll release that today too as well. So please check it out. Check out the Facebook page for Free Range. If you just type in Free Range into Facebook, it should come up. If it's not coming right up, look at Free Range Podcast. It's got the profile pic for it is kind of like a table and some food on it, and it says like food, politics, community resistance, and Free Range. Please check it out. It should be cool. And our first episode, we talked about kind of some of the kind of philosophy, so to speak, of kind of like what we're doing in the podcast, talking about creative dissent and talking about community as a space to be vulnerable, as a space to be creative. We focus in on the policy end. We look at the Farm Bill and what's been happening with the Farm Bill and some of the interconnections between, say, for example, what's going on in terms of the Trump administration basically pulling away from support of local farms and also gutting out food stamp programs, which are also part of the Farm Bill, what a lot of people don't know about. We profile this really cool site called Civil Eats. And we talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And you'll see that in our podcast is basically we follow the tangents, and that's kind of the way that Colleen and I have always approached things. We've always kind of, in our conversations, they tend to go in multiple kind of directions and interesting directions. She claims those are the most interesting parts about it. We'll lead you to judge for yourself. But we also talk about small-scale farming. We talk about slow food. We talk about regenerative agriculture, whole bunch of stuff like that. The cool thing is that Colleen is also each podcast that each episode of the podcast that comes out, each episode of Free Range, she's also going to preview and put a spotlight on some local farmers that she works with, right? And we're going to do also that some of the folks that are around me down in Percy. And one of the things we talked about, for example, on our podcast on the record, which you'll hear when you listen to it, we talked about, say, Blooming Glen Farm. It's a CSA that's right here. There's a Walnut Bottom Farm, which is also here in Percy. And we talked about the Bread Box and Bakery in Percy, which is kind of really unique in many ways because we've heard of community-supported agriculture. Bread Box and Bakery is a community-supported bakery, right? And the guy Ryman, who started it, and some of his amazing bakers there. We want to kind of start featuring some of those farmers and some of those kind of local bakers and people who are actually doing this work in some interviews on that show too as well. And I stopped by the bakery this morning after dropping off my kids too, and I talked to Ryman about this, and he was totally excited about it. And I've been surprised. We released a promo last week or earlier this week, something last week or beginning of this week, I guess. And we've already been getting feedback on it, which is really interesting and really cool. So I hope that you'll share it. I hope you listen to it. I hope you promote it to your networks, and I hope that you'll help support it. Right? We're going to have you can support it right now. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press. Like go patreon.com/RC Press. But we're going to highlight both of us. This is a collaborative effort. We're going to have Colleen will have a Patreon page, and then we'll have our Raging Chicken page too as well. And I want to urge you to also support her on her site too as well. And I'll let you know information on that as it becomes available. So it should be fun. I mean, the one thing, Sean, is I have to say about it, it's been a blast. And the one thing that Colleen wanted me to pass on to you though was 1975. That's 1975. Do you know what?
Is there a joke about that?
What's that?
I'm trying to think. Is that the year or?
It's a year, 1975. How about them Flyers?
Oh, is she a Caps fan?
She was like, I was totally going after Sean on the Facebook page about this, and I kept bringing up 97 times. He got so pissed and just stopped responding. So that was my gift to you from Colleen, 1975. Crazy.
I was actually pulling for the Capitals.
Oh yeah, were
to
you?
win the cup. Oh well. Oh, she's a Penguins fan. Who cares?
I think she's a Penguins fan. Yeah.
Fuck the Penguins. There goes half our membership.
Notice Sean said that. I did not. Right. I did not. Yeah. So anyways, all right. So that does it for our kind of Pennsylvania focus. We're going to be back right now. Kind of something on the little bit of short end for today's last call. But thanks for listening. And remember, check out the Free Range Podcast. Go to our Facebook page and like it. That's where all information is going to be initially. Eventually, we're going to have a webpage and so on. But please do that. And then, of course, become a member. Patreon.com/RCPress. Become a member and keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We will be back right after this quick break. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Over the past 6 years, we've brought unapologetic, progressive, activist media to Pennsylvania and beyond. We've helped hold those in power accountable and shine a light on some amazing activist work. We've broken national stories and established a reputation as an aggressive, independent media site. As newsrooms close and traditional journalists lose their jobs, hard-hitting, investigative news suffers. If we care about our democracy, we have to find new, sustainable models of journalism. And frankly, no one's going to do it for us. After the Trump election, we dug in even deeper. Thanks to some longtime members, one-time donations, and a shift in other resources, we brought on more writers and started paying them. Now we're doubling down and want to expand our infrastructure and pay our writers even more. We need to invest in our media if we have a chance to resist the unprecedented assault on democracy, working families, women's rights, and our planet. History will remember the choices we make today. So take a minute to become a member of Raging Chicken Press. For as little as $5 a month, the price of a local craft beer or a cup of coffee, you will be supporting homegrown progressive journalists and media activists. Go to ragingchickenpress.org and click on the Support and Membership tab to become a member. Leave a one-time donation or learn about other ways that you can help. We don't have billionaire backers. Keeping progressive, activist media going strong depends on you. Thank you for all your help and support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back. It's last call. Last call on today's Out to Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, and as usual, I'm here with Sean Kitchen. Sean Kitchen was in the Capitol this week, talking gerrymandering, as we talked about in the last segment, but also had some good picks of some Jimmy Johns, man, some Jimmy Johns. Oh, Sean, tell us about it.
Well, also doing the gerrymandering stuff. I enjoy working the floor, the rotunda when I'm in the Capitol.
Right, and that's working the floor does not involve like exchange of money for special kinds of favors.
No,
just want to get that out of people's head or put it in it.
Just always walking around, see who's there, see which reps or senators are walking around, who I can like tug their ear on for a couple seconds. And really like get a scope of things and have like off the record conversations or conversations on background about stuff to get a sense of how things are progressing, picking brains and everything. And, I spotted Senator Wagner last week or a couple days ago.
I thought he quit.
I thought he quit too.
What's he doing there?
I guess he loves the food so much in the Capitol. Well, let's just say he quit the Senate to campaign.
Right. He want to put all his energies into focusing on the campaign for governor. Right.
Yes. So he was campaigning so hard yesterday, he had to like go over into the Capitol and eat some Jimmy Johns.
Eat some Jimmy Johns. I didn't know there was a Jimmy Johns in the Capitol.
There's not. There's a Jimmy Johns a few blocks away. And he's eating a boxed lunch. So preface this. If you ever go to the Capitol, there were AppScuff or some of the unions or some of the say, grade schoolers or any of the other groups that come in. Sometimes those organizations will pay for their lunches for their members or the people who came up that day.
Right.
And sometimes there's pizza, sandwiches, stuff like that.
Sometimes there's Jimmy John's.
And yeah, yesterday there were Jimmy John's there. And Senator Wagner decided to help himself to some of the Jimmy John's, and he grabbed one for himself and a couple for his friends that he was up there with. And the people that he was with were the same people he decided to try to pull off the lawn mowing stunt with.
Oh, really?
In Southwest Philly. Yes.
So you basically got a group of school kids that are coming in there kind of getting ready for their Jimmy John. Senator Wagner comes in, grabs it off the table, and gives it to his things that says, "Screw you kids. We're going to go mow some lawns at Malcolm X Parks and be racist motherfuckers." Or something like that. I mean, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying that...
it was raining out. The grass was wet. You couldn't really mow the grass in the rain. So, I mean, the next best choice is to go over the Capitol.
Yeah, go off the Capitol and steal some lunch. That's good.
I wanted to go up to him and tell him that, like, Front Street was getting pretty bad. And, like, you know, I enjoy using the Riverfront Park and that it needs to be mowed, and would he be able to help? But I did not ask him that.
Oh, God, please do that someday.
So yesterday, and the best thing about this, like, I was able to get a picture of him shoving a Jimmy John's down his face.
Yeah, there you go, you juvenile fat-shaming, like, little... Once again.
So, like, the best thing about it, like, where he was sitting, he's sitting on, like, the folding tables outside of the cafeteria area where, like, the big parties sit. They're usually reserved sometimes. So if, like, the dining room is full and then the lounge, like, the coffee area is full, then the overflow will just go to those benches and they get kicked out once there's groups coming. It happens. I sit there all the time. But, like, he's sitting in a point where, if you can visualize this, he's sitting at the end of the table and at the end of the rows near, like, the hallway that goes into, like, the bowels of the Capitol, you know, behind the food courts and all, in front, or right near the food courts. So, like, he's sitting in a spot where I saw him, I turned a corner, I got a couple of pictures of him from, like, ground level, and then I went up the escalator, hung a left, and I was able to, like, get my picture, like, pretty much, like, right on top of him pointing down.
Just as like he's about to take a nice big bite of Jimmy John's.
Yes. And, you know, I think he has a newspaper there. I wasn't able to zoom in all the way.
Oh.
But I think he's reading the classifieds.
Well, look. You know what? I think we actually had some audio that you were able to recover from that, though, too, as well. Overhearing the conversation with his aide. So this is kind of what he had.
I'm in a waste management business. Everybody immediately assumes you're mobbed up. It's a stereotype, and it's offensive.
I was really surprised at the quality of the audio that you're able to get from that. It's like...
But on top of waste management, I think he's looking for, like, pothole repair services, trash cleaning services along the highway.
There you go.
You know, other stuff includes municipal contracts and big government contracts that he wants to destroy.
Exactly. You know, I assume that he'd want to expand the prison population so he could get free labor for that stuff, too.
Yeah, well, I mean, he wants to cut taxes to the point where, and someone's going to have to pay for the infrastructure spending. It's going to have to come from somewhere.
There you go, man. There you go. Future Senator Wagner, will he be our next governor? God, I hope not. Wolf seems to be kind of feeling pretty comfortable about stuff. So,
but the one thing we're going to see, is if he reports these Jimmy Johns as in-kind contributions on his campaign finance reports, because he didn't pay for them and they were given to him.
Interesting.
So is he there as a private citizen or is he there as a campaign candidate? I don't know.
Maybe he was on a school trip.
I think he was actually lobbying people about something. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to influence the budget process without being there as a senator.
Sean, that would be wrong. Come on, highest standards. Come on. What do you think he is?
And another thing
George
we were
Soros?
talking about. There was a Wagner staffer who didn't know what the fuck was going on on Tuesday in the Capitol, and he went up to one of the union lobbyists, obviously not knowing who the person was, and asked, like, where, like, I'm in the Capitol, I don't know what I'm doing. Do you know who so-and-so is? I got to meet with him. And I wish I was there for this, but supposedly like the kid was wearing khakis and a white Scott Wagner polo shirt, and he had like the undercut going on.
Nice.
So I think they're getting ready for I think they're getting their marching route down.
Yeah. So did they go over the Union guy? I didn't know what it was. Hey, where do I buy some tiki torches? Got my tiki torches. Maybe we should send him a case of tiki torches. Go up and personally deliver it to him. We understand that you had some aides that felt a little lost in here. We recognize them by their, the alt-right uniform that they had on. So we thought maybe we're looking for some tiki torches. Is that what you're looking for? We got a case of them right here.
Yeah.
Crazy, man. Crazy. Well, you know what? So, like I promised, we'll do a little short one, short end here. I was going to talk a little about Jim Bridenstine's stuff on New Pace. He's the guy who's the head of NASA, some space news. But, if you look at it, really what he's doing, doubling down on some of the stuff we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks about doubling down on the privatization of this and basically reaffirming the order that has come out of the White House, right, to basically get back to the moon and start building a base on the moon. So we'll keep on watching that, folks. So this weekend,
going to be a base or a penal colony?
It's going to be, they're calling it a gateway, right? And I assume prisoners will build it. So they'll start to ship that. So they will need some sort of like Botany Bay kind of Australian stuff, bring rabbits, right, kind of thing, to the moon in order to build it. I'm sure that stuff would not be far from off the work. So my guess is it's going to be immigrants, right, because they're immigrant children who they're running out of space for. So might as well get them accustomed to space travel now, Sean. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Nuts. So this weekend is Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to anybody who's out there who happens to be a father. And the Free Will Brewing right here in Percy, Pennsylvania has got some great stuff lined up starting tonight. This is Thursday, remember, everybody. So tonight you've got beer and you got the food. The food wagon tonight is the food truck is Trey Locally Sourced. They produce great stuff. Tomorrow night will be beer and Urban's wood-fired pizza. They've got great wood-fired pizzas that are cooked right there in the food truck. They're fantastic, I promise you. On Saturday, not only does the Free Will have a tent set up at the Percy Farmers Market. That is Percy's Farmers Market is up and running now. They will be there from 9 to 12 in case you got hair of the dog that you need to kind of like take care of. You'll be able to show up nice and bright and early at the Farmers Market there. But they'll also have the Flying Dutchman and beer, of course, Saturday right at the brewery. And on Sunday is beer and the Flying Pie Guy for Father's Day. Apparently, I didn't know this, but a flying pie, which I just thought it was like, oh, it's a cool name, whatever. It's actually an Australian thing, and the guy who runs it, he's based out of New Jersey, and he's an Australian, he's an Aussie who's kind of came to the U.S. and worked for a while doing corporate stuff or something like this, and they got tired of it and decided this is really what he wanted to do. And a flying pie is basically, if you think about what a chicken pot pie is, right, that's kind of like the Australians' version of this is called a flying pie, and they stuff it with all sorts of different stuff, right, and they're fantastic. So we've gone there a couple times now when he's been there, so that's going to be a Father's Day treat. I'm going to lobby hard. That's going to be our dinner on Sunday, but we'll see what happens. I also got to give a shout out to everybody out there whose kids are either finishing or about to finish the end of the school year. I hope it is a good one. Today is my kid's last day of school, which I'm very psyched about. I know some other districts are going a little bit longer because of snow days and that kind of stuff. But happy summer for all those parents out there who are wondering what the hell they're going to do with their kids now during the summer. I hope it's a good one. So anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
No, I am driving back out in Philly after this. My dad's turning 65 this weekend, so we're going out to Iron Hill Brewery tonight.
Nice.
For dinner, grab some beer, and I'll be heading back up here over the weekend.
They had a pretty good. Last time I was there, they had a pretty. I want to say it was a porter or something like that I really liked there.
Yeah, my dad's not a big beer drinker, but he likes simple food, so we chose to go to Iron Hill.
It's kind of like a meet in the middle kind of thing, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Iron Hill's pretty good, and the food's good there, so cool. All right, well, that'll just about do it for us, folks. Sean is off and checking his Twitter account, and he's a little bit antsy to get on the road because he's got a lot of stuff to do today before he goes out for dinner, right? And I'm not even going to kind of have a conjecture of what those things that you have to do are going to be, but I'm just going to leave that there. So anyways, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. It's been a good one. Remember, check out Free Range Podcast. Go to our Facebook page and search for Free Range. Like us there. Share it. If you know people that are involved with kind of locally sourced stuff, organic stuff, let us know. That's going to be our place for discussion and community on that page. And please, get the Raging Chicken Press's page too. Like us there. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Become a member today. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. From me and Sean, we're out of here, folks. See ya!
He is a killer. I mean,
he's clearly executing people.
He's a tough guy. Hey, when you take over a country, tough country, with tough people, and you take it over from your father, if you can do that at 27 years old, that's 1 in 10,000 that could do that.
It fucking gets me every time, man.